Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only, Ray the Flying Squirrel here, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening Remake for the Nintendo Switch. So, last time, we've essentially done quite a number of things here and there. Like, for instance, we did somehow manage to able to learn the third and the final song, all thanks to the forms of this specific area, that naturally speaking, I was about the fact that we need to read those specific signposts in order to able to actually meet up with Wart, despite the fact that his name is completely different in this game, by the way, as I've already established that before, since in yesterday, and the reason being for this is because we did indeed manage to able to bring back alive with the actual rooster. So naturally speaking though, we somehow used the rooster to do quite a number of things in Journey Forms of Telltale Mountain, and as a result though, we somehow claim ourselves the Eagle Key. And in addition to that, we also did manage to collect some more secret seashells. And by the way, speaking of which, when it comes to the secret seashells, I think we are almost essentially collected every single secret seashells in this remake of the game. So as a result though, yeah, everything else checks out there. So today, for this video, is about the fact that we're going to be continuing things on throughout the whole game, and this time we're going to be exploring into the next dungeon, which appears to be Eagle's Tower. And I think out of all of the actual dungeons, in terms of Link's Awakening, it doesn't matter if it's either on the Game Boy Color, and of course Nintendo Switch Remake, this is the only dungeon in the game you can able to actually explore into other floors throughout the whole entire dungeon. Get it? Because of how the fact that we're going to be exploring in the tower, so it makes sense about the fact that the tower itself does have multitude of floors to traverse into. So, anyways though, now, for those of you probably wondering about the fact that how come my voice is actually going to get a lot different at this point, well, if you couldn't tell already, the fact that no matter what though, like I stated this before, about the fact that the uploading schedules for The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening Remake is actually a lot different this time, because obviously, like what, Silver and Joy, including Sonic and Maxi himself as well, already explained about this quite a few times in the past, that we're going to be doing with 2 or 3 days this time around when it comes to The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening Remake uploading schedules, as far as I'm aware. Well, that's besides the point. So anyway, the reason why that my voice is actually sound a bit off again is because once again we suffered illness again. Like, as a result though, no wonder why, about the fact that this year in general is a massive step backwards compared to the forms of how it does it in last year to me though. But that's just mainly because no matter what though, that I just cannot even believe about the fact that I just felt a bit slightly rough at this point today. Although, I'm still fine as it is, but it's just about the fact that, well, it did happen in Journey Forms of it around a couple of days ago, since I would say since on Thursday, that I don't suppose if you noticed, but as soon as I finish up one of those recording sessions where it comes to The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening Remake while Blaze is with me, obviously no matter what though, it's about the fact that I felt a little bit weird during the other day, but then I did manage to able to find out about the fact that once again I suffered illness, and as a result though, it's most notably because of the forms of, well, the time of the weather is now usually it's gonna get pretty cold, so naturally speaking though, I have to wrap myself warm. So luckily though, about the fact that I did manage to able to watch Inside Out 2, not only on DVD, but as well as Disney Plus as well, so naturally speaking though, I can able to actually spend some time to, well, watch the film over and over again, because I seriously still enjoy Inside Out 2, because, you know, it's, you know, a welcoming comeback when it comes to Pixar movies after this particular box office flopped in Journey Forms of the past few years, since 2020, because obviously that was about the fact that with the pandemic usually comes into play. So anyway, yeah, that's besides the point. So, anyways though, so there's also another things worth mentioning for actually, and that's what appears to be about the fact that, well, for those of you probably wondering about the fact that, well, today's date is of course the 9th of October today, in some cases in 2024 today, and potentially speaking of, we've only got about exactly 2 more days to go until the physical version of Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is going to be releasing, and in addition to that though, is about the fact that we've only got about, I would say, we've got about about 8 more days to go until Super Mario Party Jamboree is going to be releasing, and if I recall correctly, we've only got about roughly 16 days left now until Sonic X Shadow Generations will be releasing on multiple platforms. So yeah, I'm still pretty excited about those as well. And also, something worth noting for is that I'm pretty sure that we've only got about, I would say, 29 more days to go, or something relates to that. Well, mind you, but when it comes to the forms of Mario Luigi Brothership, as for the game I was referring to earlier, well, I will admit though right away though is about the fact it has been about quite a few hours ago since I actually have last mentioned something relates to Mario Luigi Brothership as far as I'm aware, just because, well, I did somehow manage to found out that recently though, specifically for those of you if you lived in America, basically though it's about the fact that we actually managed to realize there was actually the second playable demo on the likes of Super Mario Party Jamboree did manage to came out during in certain stores. So for instance, it's about the fact that obviously though is about the fact that you're only going to be play as 20 playable characters at the moment in during the forms of that specific demo on the actual store. And relatively speaking, that was about the fact that much like the forms of how it does it when if you managed able to get the game until specifically on the 17th of October, basically that was about the fact that both Pauline and Ninja were the only unlockable characters in the entire game. So as a result though, yeah, everything else checks out there. And something's worth noting for actually is about the fact that when it comes to the amount of mini games, as far as I'm aware, I believe you can able to actually experience about, I would say, a grand total of 15 mini games you can play through. Well, mind you about the fact that on that particular recent demo that a lot of players have already experienced, that basically though you can only play through 2 different modes, which are Kubla-Avalon and Free Play, or in some cases Minigame Bay, and that's where you can able to experience mini games and stuff like that. Similar to the forms of how it does it in you know, other demos from the likes of in Mario Party 10, as well as the forms of Super Mario Party and all that stuff. So yeah, everything else will be come to expect. Now, what I've also realized about the fact that certain mini games have also got named, which as a result though, like 2 of them, we actually did manage able to found something new, which there are Flump the Difference, and there's also Trampoline that you can able to actually jump onto a lot of ant troopers and all that stuff, and you have to watch out for these spiky head ones. So yeah, that's actually quite interesting. And there's also few more named mini-games when it comes to the forms of Showdown mini-games. So we already know for the fact that obviously one of them is obviously Yoshi's Mountain Race, because obviously though we've already know about that ever since in the overview trailer when it comes to not only the Japanese version but as well as the English version as well. And there's also the forms of, I would say, Mario's 3-Peat, where basically though is about the fact that I found that particular minigame quite interesting to me though. Not only about the fact that we can able to actually participate in a 5-player minigame of all things, but it's also about the fact that it does manage to contain a combination of retro minigames into modern aesthetics, which appears to be, of course, Leaf Leap, Bumper Balls, and Shy Guy Says. So obviously though, Leaf Leap from Mario Party 5, and Bumper Balls based off from specifically Mario Party 1, because obviously though, unlike the forms of how it does it in Superstars, that is most likely based off from Mario Party 2, just because of multiple variants for that particular Bumper Balls minigame. And as far as I'm aware, is about the fact that when it comes to Super Mario Party Jamboree version of Bumper Balls, it's going to be going back onto one variant, which is going to be specifically based off from Mario Party 1. So it makes sense, despite the fact that the music was heavily borrowed from Mario Party 2 as a remake music and stuff like that. And finally, of course, Shy Guy Says, which is obviously inspired by Mario Party 2 version, because obviously we can able to actually just, you know, fly as a balloon, and potentially speaking of is about the fact that this time around though, that yellow Shy Guy is now the judge of the archer if you manage to raise the wrong flag. And as a result though, clearly it's because of how the fact that obviously those that the red Shy Guy is now playable, so it makes it a little bit more sensical for that sake of the forms of trying to play as, you know, a different counterpart of Shy Guy or something. So anyway, one of those minigames has recently been named where it comes to the forms of the Luigi Showdown minigame, which appears to be called Luigi Rescue Operation, where basically that is about the fact that you have to traverse into 8 different rooms with 8 different puzzles in order to be able to rescue Luigi. So yeah, that's actually quite interesting, all things considered. So, and there's also Peach's Day Off, which obviously though, similar to the forms of how it does it in Mario's 3-peat, basically though is about the fact that you have to go through 3 different tasks, which there are, you have to deliver the presents to the Toads, and while avoiding those Parabots, which it kind of reminds me of Acornopia from the likes of in Mario Party Star Rush. However, unlike in Mario Party Star Rush though, we don't simply able to actually bump into Goombrats this time, so instead you're able to actually try to avoid the Parabots, basically. So, and there's also the second phase where you have to deliver the donuts to Peach. However though, here's the catch though, if you try to compete against with the CPU players on the donut section, it's all incredibly luck-based, and similar to the forms of how it does it in, let's just say the King Baba minigame from Mario Party 9, that basically though, if you pick the exact same buttons, obviously though, they'll just get knocked each other out, and as a result though, you have to pick a different donuts and stuff like that. Now I believe the third and the final phase of the minigame is about the fact that you have to able to pick up gems to put them in a cannon to launch fireworks. So, and the more you're trying to deliver those gems into the actual cannon, obviously though you get more points based off on the sake of the forms of the fireworks display you somehow activated or something. So yeah, that's actually quite interesting. So, and there's also the forms of Daisy's Field Day. So, no matter what though, I found it was a little bit cool, and that about the fact that you can able to come across into 4 different rounds with the forms of that particular minigame. So, for instance, the minigame where players jump on wooden platforms by a pier, where Daisy standing on, in front of the pier, and you collect coins that have Daisy's emblem on them. So, as a result though, yeah, it feels kind of fun to me though, and why also I found it a little bit interesting though, is about the fact that, well, let's just say, similar to the forms of how it does it in Sonic the Fighters, that if you manage to able to play that specific character, like for example, I seen the actual footage, and basically though what happens was though, that if you play as, like, let's just say for example, if you play as Mario, and if you're trying to able to actually compete it in during the forms of one of those minigames in Mario's 3-peat, where basically though is about the fact that the doppelganger of Mario will appear. So naturally speaking, that was about the fact that I think that gives us a first glimpse of it, all thanks to the forms of the overview trailer of the forms of, or should I say, rather, the forms of that particular preview videos for Super Mario Party Jamboree itself. So either way though, yeah, everything else checks out there, and that could be also applies to the forms of other characters as well. So either way, the next minigame that have been listed on it, that's what appears to be Wario's Buzzer Beater, where basically though, it's like a quiz show basically, which I think is actually pretty awesome to me though, and as a result, a minigame where players participate in a game show hosted by Wario and must answer 10 questions as fast as possible. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that minigame actually, because, well, obviously though is about the fact that much like the forms of how it does it on Speak Up from Mario Party 6, that basically though we have to go through several questions and during the forms of that specific minigame or anything else like that. However though, unlike in Mario Party 6 though, you have to require the microphone in order to able to actually play Speak Up, so I don't think about the fact that the microphone will not be included on that particular point. So, but I digress. And also about the fact that one of those minigames have been named recently when it comes to the Waluigi Showdown minigame. That's what it appears to be called Waluigi's Pinball Arcade, because obviously that was about the fact that, well, it's actually a lot similar to the ones of how it does in a majority of the Mario Kart games. Usually, specifically though, 4 of those Mario Kart games in the past, ranging from Mario Kart DS, Mario Kart 7, as well as Mario Kart Tour, and of course Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Specifically though, for the Booster Course Pass DLC, I still really love about the fact that when it comes to the visual presentation, it's going to be all about Waluigi themed pinball machines. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool, and as far as I'm aware, I believe I get the strong feeling about the fact that when it comes to Waluigi's Pinball Arcade minigame, it does kind of remind me like a similar vibes as in one of those minigames in Mario Party Star Rush. where basically though you can able to play around with the actual pinball machine, and I believe you can able to experience that minigame in Coin-Athlon, that you're simply trying to able to keep on collecting coins in the actual pinball machine. However though, unlike the forms of how it does it in the forms of that particular minigame in Mario Party Star Rush, that I believe if you try to play that minigame on free play mode, that is basically only single player experience as far as I'm aware. So this time around though, it's actually going to get a lot more competitive this time around when it comes to 4 other people, or specifically with 3 other people if you managed able to play us with them or something like that. So yeah, I'm actually very excited to able to actually see how that minigame plays out to be, and I'm sure enough though it's about the fact that the actual objective of that particular minigame, where basically though where players compete for the highest score in Waluigi themed pinball machines. So yeah, it's one of those trying to get your high scores and all that stuff in order to able to get yourselves the Jamboree Buddy, assuming of course about the fact that if you try to play through the actual main game boards itself on Mario Party mode. So that's what I can really think about it. So anyways though, before I get into more details about the forms of Super Mario Party Jamboree, as you can see, we've opened up this particular treasure chest, which does manage to contain the upgraded shield, which appears to be the mirror shield. So as a result though, basically though, you can able to actually use that particular mirror shield to able to reflect projectiles back at anyone else. So yeah, that's as far as I can say about it. Of course, if you ever experienced that particular familiar item before, ever since in A Link to the Past, you'll feel right at home, especially if you ever experienced the original version of Link's Awakening as well, in addition to the Game Boy Color version as well. So yeah, you get the idea for this point. So anyways though, there's also another one of those mini-games have been listed, specifically though, when it comes to the Donkey Kong Showdown minigame, as well as, strangely enough, the Bowser Jr. Showdown minigame as well, and both of which requires us to able to do, well, one of them you have to able to press those specific buttons and a corresponding button you have to able to press on the actual rhythm, and then the other one is basically a lot of objectives you can able to deal with. So for instance, the Donkey Kong minigame for the Showdown minigame is actually going to be called DK's Conga Line. So yeah, the Conga name sounds a bit familiar to you? Well, it kind of reminds me like a similar treatment as the forms of, let's just say, the majority of the Donkey Konga games on the GameCube, because of how the fact that you can able to, you know, use the DK bongos to able to actually get the rhythm going, at least specifically depending on what songs you're going to be able to actually go for this point, despite the fact that we're able to actually come across into licensed songs when it comes to likely for the English versions of Donkey Konga and Donkey Konga 2, and occasional Japanese songs for the sake of Donkey Konga 3. So yeah, it's been a very long time since we actually noticed something related to the forms of Donkey Konga, except the fact that obviously though we can't utilize DK bongos as the controller this time, so instead you get able to press the L and R buttons. It doesn't matter what control scheme you're going to be using, so that's as far as I was expecting. So anyway, basically though, when it comes to DK's Conga Line, where basically in a mini game where players tap buttons to hit bongo drums with Donkey Kong present. So yeah, as a result though, it seems pretty cool though. Especially, it almost reminds me of one of those mini games as well, from the likes of Rio, the video game, that basically though, you know, that particular game is basically a Mario Party clone, but based off from Rio movie. Well, as a result though, it's about the fact that one of those mini games that also requires you to be able to memorize the button sequences, and as a result though, yeah, I'm very curious to know how that particular minigame actually decides to play out to be once, you know, Super Mario Party Jamboree is expected to be releasing. So anyways though, so as you can see right there, in order able to make our way to the very end of this dungeon right here, is that we sort of able to actually forgot to mention about this until now anyway. Basically though, is about the fact that as you can see, we have to knock down all 4 of those pillars, because once you've done so, all thanks to the forms of this particular heavy ball that we have to be able to actually utilize the powerful bracelet, by the way, in order to be able to lift up the heavy stuff. And potentially speaking, though, is about the fact that that's essentially, though, how we can able to deal with the actual specific progressioning of Eagle's Tower. So, despite the fact I did have a lot of mistakes from time to time, because of the forms of how the fact that sometimes, though, is about the fact that it can be confusing at times, especially concerning for the fact that, well, nothing even compares to the forms of how it does it for the let's just say the final dungeon in a game. But then again, though, we'll get to the forms of the final dungeon in the game and during at some point, as I said before, until next Tuesday, perhaps. So, anyways, though, and I suppose the next minigame they have been listed for the sake of the Showdown minigames, and that's what appears to be the Bowser Jr. minigame, which appears to be Junior's Dreamlet, where basically, though, it's about the fact that Bowser Jr. uses a remote to activate different conditions for the players, such as dodging bullet bills, or amps, or picking up a chicken, and much, much more. So yeah, I'm very curious to know how that's going to play out as well. Now, in terms of the forms of other minigames have been listed, despite the fact that they haven't exactly revealed their names just yet, though. But from what I can tell about the fact that when it comes to the forms of the 5 remaining minigames that usually covers up by question marks, actually as it turns out is about the fact that the 5 remaining minigames in terms of Super Mario Party Jamboree are all going to be for the sake of the forms of boss battle minigames. So yeah, that's actually pretty swell, especially concerning for the fact that obviously, though, it's been about 8 years ago since we've last had the Mario Party game that you do have to face up against with any other boss battles here and there, which obviously, though, I will admit it though right away, the top 100 does not count to me though, because all it gets is just basically you actually have a one-on-one fight against with Bowser based off from Mario Party 4 in the final battle minigame. So it's a shame about the fact that it's kind of unfortunate we can't able to actually see not only Stardust Battle from Mario Party 3, as well as the forms of Frightmare from Mario Party 5, as well as Bowser's Lovely Lift, and of course Superstar Showdown minigames will not return in the modern aesthetics. So as a result, though, the final battle for Mario Party 4 is the only final boss type of minigame was actually present in the modern aesthetic during the forms within the modern Mario Party games, I'm pretty sure anyway. So despite the fact it has been a very long while since I actually have last played Mario Party the Top 100, because like I said this before, that I've been busy playing through not only Super Mario Party, but as well as Mario Party Superstars on my spare own time, just before, you know, Super Mario Party Jamboree is getting closer to its release. So, however though, here's the thing though, unfortunately though, I don't think it's possible for us to able to actually get ourselves our pre-order bonus item this time around though, because unlike the forms of how it does it in Mario Party Superstars, that I do remember about the fact that we somehow got ourselves quite nifty of items for the pre-order bonus items to our disposal, which are, let's just say, the coasters, and as well as the forms of this nifty hot drink bottle or something like that. So, and as far as I'm aware, when it comes to the forms of the bosses though, they somehow got listed for Super Mario Party Jamboree, that one of those minigames that we've technically already know about, and that's what appears to be about the fact that the big Sting-By is going to be one of the bosses in Journey Forms within Super Mario Party Jamboree, and believe it or not though, that minigame is actually very similar to the forms of how it does in one of those boss battle minigames in Mario Party 10, which is of course Mega Goomba's Ladder Leap. However though, there aren't any ladders to able to actually climb onto this time around. So, and there was also the boss battle where you basically have to battle against the giant rocky wrench by using cannons, so this will be interesting. And there's also going to be a minigame where players battle a giant dragon eel. Okay, that's quite interesting. And there's also a minigame where you face up against this unknown foe, where basically though, certain players create electrical circuits. And finally, the final boss battle minigame, which appears to be face up against with Imposter Bowser. So, yeah, kind of interesting, all things considered. So, anyway, now, in terms of the forms of certain minigames have been playable for the sake of the forms of the in-store demo, for the sake of the forms of certain shops and all that stuff, what I've heard anyway. Like I stated before, is about the fact that during the course of any minigame bay, you're only able to experience about a grand total of 15 minigames. So 2 of them are which are basically 4-player minigames, and I believe there's also 2 of them from 1 versus 3, and the other 2 from 2 versus 2, and 9 of them are showdown minigames. So, for instance, when it comes to 4-player minigames though, there is Flump the Difference, and there's also Trampoline, and for 1 versus 3, there's only 2 of those minigames are being playable, which there are, well, some of these minigames you might able to actually know about already, ever since in PAX West demo, so they somehow featured those minigames again, except this time about the fact that they're now being playable in certain shops, so when it comes to demo stations anyway, so obviously, though, we can still able to see Sunset Standoff, as well as Cookie Cutters, as well as Prime Cut, and Tricky Turntables. So, and the majority of the forms of the 9 remaining minigames, as I stated before, are entirely Jamboree Showdown minigames, which is obviously Mario's Free Pete, and Luigi Rescue Operation, Peach's Day Off, and Daisy's Field Day, and Warrior's Buzzer Beater, I think is what it says anyway, and Waluigi's Pinball Arcade, Yoshi Mountain Race, DK's Conga Line, and Junior's Joomlet. So, yeah, that's quite a nifty of minigames, including some of them from other modes, which is specifically, though, when it comes to the forms of, well, Koopa Avalon. So, either way, though, relatively speaking, and there's also quite a few minigames for the sake of the forms of survivalation minigames that you have to able to try to, you know, avoid imposter Bowser and stuff like that. So, oh, and by the way, something's worth noting for, actually. Unfortunately, though, Bowser is not going to be playable in one of those modes in particular. Not just for one mode, but 2 modes that are entirely based off from the sake of the forms of Bowser's challenges. So as a result, though, yeah, it's kind of unfortunate, though. But regardless of such, though, it was pretty much understandable for the sake of the forms of don't get sense of confusion or something. Well, I have no idea. So no matter what, though, it's about the fact that if you do manage to able to select Bowser in one of those particular playable character roster and stuff like that, basically, though, the notification says to you, you can't play as Bowser in this mode. So, and it does say, switch to a different character. So because of that, though, yeah, it's going to be apparent when it comes to not only in Koopa Avalon, but as well as Bowser Kaboom Squad as well. So, yeah, it's very similar to the forms of how it does it in Mario Party 10, where basically, though, it's about the fact that Bowser was only playable in 2 modes, which is, of course, Bowser Party and Amiibo Party, whilst unlike in Mario Party mode, that basically Bowser was not playable in that mode. So, yeah, it's kind of weird, honestly. So, either way, though, that's as far as I can try to think about it. So, anyways, though, also, from what I've heard anyway, about the fact that I've noticed about the fact that the frame rate in one of those recent games during that time, which appears to be SpongeBob SquarePants, the Patrick Star game, the ones I'm referring to is the Nintendo Switch version, as far as I can definitely notice the difference for the actual frame rate and everything. Well, unfortunately, though, the Nintendo Switch version of SpongeBob SquarePants, the Patrick Star game, has suffered the forms of some very, indescribably bad, frame rate issues. So no matter what, though, it runs consistently when it comes to menu navigations and stuff like that. However, though, since about the fact that that game is basically an open world type of game, there are a few rare occasions about the fact that the frame rate will chug a lot. So, because I've seen the actual video where basically, though, it just shows us the actual, the frame rate cap was actually on 2, and geez Louise, is actually below 30 frames per second, which is not as pleasing as it seems. Although, unlike the forms of how it does it on other systems, like PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S, and even PC Steam, and of course, PlayStation 5, they have really dang good steady frame rates, like 60 frames per second, at least what I've noticed on the PlayStation 5 version, just because, you know, currently that both Xbox Series X/S and even PlayStation 5 are much more powerful than the forms of how it does it for the regular Nintendo Switch, unless assuming of course about the fact that things will change in the later years to come. So, but either way though, we'll find out more about it during at some point in the next couple of weeks, potentially speaking of by the end of 2024 or generally at the beginning of 2025 if possible. So either way, so here we go with the next boss fight in this particular remake. As you can tell, that's what appears to be an evil eagle. So basically that was about the fact that one thing I do appreciate about the forms of Link's Awakening, to be more specifically with this boss fight itself, that the entire boss fight does manage to take place on top of the tower. So potentially speaking now, that, you know, it does make sense concerning for the fact that obviously though eagles can fly in the skies above. So obviously though this boss is kind of tricky this time around compared to the forms of how it does in the original version, just because in the original version you can just simply just try to able to mash the B button, assuming if you do manage to equip the sword with you. So no matter what though, yeah, nothing else I can really say about this, I guess. Although, there's also another thing worth mentioning for, in regards of the forms of Super Mario Party Jamboree, for I found out, there's actually quite a lot of game hosts and all that stuff, or character hosts, to be more specifically when it comes to other modes. Like, for instance, I believe Kamek is the only one that he's going to be a primarily host of the entire game, not only for the sake of the forms of the primarily host, but as well as Koopa Avalon and Bowser's Kaboom Squad. And meanwhile, when it comes to Yellow Toad, obviously though he's the host in Mario Party mode. And on top of that, Blue Toad is going to be the host on Minigame Bay, similar to the forms of how it does it on some minigame modes, from not only from Mario Party 9, but as well as Mario Party Island Tour. And there's also Lakitu, he's going to be the host in Minigame Bay, and specifically in Daily Challenge. And Boom Boom is going to be the host in Minigame Bay in one of those side modes you can able to experience for. And meanwhile for Pom Pom, that she's going to be the host in Survival Mode in Minigame Bay. And finally, Red Koopa Trooper is going to be the host in Minigame Bay in another one of those modes that we haven't exactly thought about yet. Because obviously though is about the fact that, well, I'm still very excited about that game for now, especially concerning for the fact that things get a lot more promising as far as everything else as far as I'm concerned with. So anyway, so as you can see, since we somehow completed Eagle's Tower, so this means that the Rooster Fella was no longer with us. So because of that though, hopefully we should be able to meet up with him eventually at some point. But for now, let's fall down to this hole, and potentially speaking of, that might able to actually access us to that particular water, as we somehow already explored from before, while we did somehow manage to able to find ourselves the piece of heart from that way. So, but I digress. Oh, there's also another 3 minigame names have been revealed, specifically though in Survivalmation or Survivalon minigames where, you know, Imposter Bowser was involved, and that's what appears to be about the fact that one of those minigames was actually burning bridges, and there's also the floor is falling, and finally Castle Hustle. So because of that though, yeah, only 2 more minigames left. So suffice to say though is about the fact that when it comes to Koopa Avalon minigames, I believe we can only experience for a grand total of 9 minigames total in Koopa Avalon minigames, so it certainly is a little bit more lesser compared to the forms of how it does it in Mario Party Star Rush's Coin Avalon minigames, where basically though it has like a grand total of 12 of them. At least if I recall that correctly. And then meanwhile, when it comes to Bowser minigames in Koopa Avalon, at least specifically though, when it comes to Super Mario Party Jamboree, I believe there's going to be a grand total of 5 of them. So no matter what though, Journey forms of, unlike the forms of how it does in Star Rush though, basically though, it only has 3 of those Bowser minigames, or simply known as Bowser's Gauntlet. So yeah, that's something else I can really say about this, I guess. So, now I suppose the final thing I want to discuss upon, actually, is that, did you know, for those of you probably wondering, when it comes to F-Zero, facts and stuff like that, did you know about the fact that F-Zero was inspired by 2 of those movies, which are Back to the Future 2 and Batman? Because I never thought about it up until now, actually, especially concerning for the fact that, well, it's hard for me to explain because I already know for the fact that I've sort of noticed about the fact I'm pretty sure that Sonic did already mention about the fact that we've already got ourselves 2 remaining Game Boy Advance games for F-Zero games onto Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack. So at the very least though, we actually got every single F-Zero games apart from one in particular exception, which appears to be well, F-Zero GX for the GameCube. So that was the only ones left when it comes to getting the majority of the F-Zero games into one specific system. So anyways, so I suppose with all that being said, folks, is that we're getting endings of this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening Remake for the Nintendo Switch. Is that we're going to be doing quite a lot of things first before we head over to the final dungeon in the game. So this will be exciting. So I'll see you guys until tomorrow. Later, fellas.